So in this session, we're going to look at question 2 of the component 4 Producing and Analysing exam. This is also section A. So over the past few days, I've been getting loads of emails about this exam from students and teachers that are quite worried, quite concerned. Now, this is a tough exam. There's no ifs or buts about that. But the good thing about this exam is if you know your DAW and you know how to work around it, you will be fine. Okay, most of the information that you will need for this exam you can get from the actual DAW. Another thing that's freaking out a lot of schools is worrying whether their computer systems will go down during the exam. This is a tough one. There is a little bit of leeway on this, not much, but a little way. The best thing I can say to you guys is just, the day before, go in, make sure everything is working and make sure everything is okay, and that you just test, and that's it. Sometimes you can't odds these things, and what happens, but more often than not, as if you're well prepared and well set up, you'll be fine. You're not allowed the internet, so you don't have to worry about networking or anything like that. It's just making sure that the computer works and everything is solid. Now, if you like these videos, make sure you subscribe, make sure you give us a thumbs up to show us your support. It's much appreciated. So let's crack on. So question 2, once again, this is part of section A. There are 5 questions that make up section A, and the total mark is going to be 85. The individual questions within inside of section A will differ from year to year, but the end result of section A will be 85 marks. And once again, section B is 1 question and it's 20 marks. And it will always be some kind of recording scenario essay question. So for question 2, you are going to be doing mixing and producing for this one. So not all of the questions in section A will ask you to bounce down. This particular one in the sample doesn't ask you to bounce down. It does, however, ask you to import a track. And once again, you have a multitude of question types for this. The question types for section A, because they're all production based, can be really interesting, and I'll show you a really interesting one in a minute. Once again, importing and exporting of audio and MIDI files is a necessity. Make sure you export them to the correct folder. This sample question is worth 11 marks in total, but that might not be always the same. Once again, you can use everything in your DAW to answer this question. And finally, question 1 is based on one particular piece of audio. Question 2 is based on one particular piece of audio, show MIDI part. And that's the same for all questions inside of section A. They will all focus in on a particular part, apart from question 5, of course, which wants you to do the full mix. So for this particular question, you will be focusing on one piece of audio, which is a synth part. So the questions for this is the sample one. So once again, you're going to be asked to import the synth part. You're going to be asked to put it in the correct position or synchronized point or quantized point. This particular one wants to go in at bar 1. And then it asks you a very specific question like describe the pitch bend at bar 3. So you can use the DAW to try and find the pitch bend or try and analyze what's actually happening, and then you're going to write a very brief statement about that. It's only a 2-mark question, so you don't need to go into masses of depth. You're just looking probably for 2 points there. So in question 2B, you're asked about the stereo delay for the synth, and describe the settings that describe the settings that give stereo width to the delay. Once again, it's just worth 2 marks, and you can go into your DAW, you can look at the stereo effect, and you can analyze which particular parameter might give you that, and then write a descriptor. One thing I do say to my students is become very familiar with the settings, and also become familiar with describing what those settings do. It will come in very handy for this particular exam. So part C, you're going to be asked about the EQ and filtering of the synth. So the first thing is to identify the filter used. And once again, if you've become familiar with your EQ graph, you can actually play the track and you can watch what's happening. You can, in most instances, not all, you'll be able to identify which kind of filter it is, whether it's a high pass or a low pass or a notch pass or whatever, notch filter, a bandpass filter. Once you have that, you can just write that. It's worth 1 mark, so you're only going to need to give 1 response there. The next thing asks you what happens to the cutoff frequency throughout 19 to 26. So once again, you should be able to watch that, for the most part, watch that in your EQ graph and see what actually happens during those bars. It won't always be obvious, but you should be able to see it, and you should be able to pinpoint the actual frequencies that are moving. The next thing then is, this is one my students always find really, really difficult. It's worth 5 marks, and you have to draw the graph, or draw the filter that you've just analysed onto this particular chart. You have to be very, very detailed about this. So along the left hand side, you're going to want to write the decibels. Along the bottom, you're going to want to write the frequencies. You're going to want to draw in the middle the filter that you've identified, and you're also going to want to identify where the cutoff is and the resonance is. And you can even label this, and you can draw dotted lines to show the bandwidth of the cutoff if you want to. The more detail you give, the more marks you will get, and the only way you can get all 5 marks is to be that detailed. Similar questions for this can also be compression graphs as well. So it might help you just to kind of familiarize yourself with compression graphs and EQ graphs, and draw some out, just so you're kind of get yourself some practice. So preparation for this question. The first bit, once again, just practice importing and exporting audio and MIDI files to a specific, or certainly on the export, to a specific bit rate and frequency. So analyze and draw EQ and filter charts, analyze and draw compression charts, listen and analyze to panning and volume automations, and then finally practice describing the parameters of various effects and dynamic processes. This is all going to give you good stead, and it's all going to kind of get you in the right frame of mind for this. You're going to get asked a lot of questions about describing what you can hear or how something works for this exam, so just make sure you're prepared for that. And a lot of the questions that you get asked will focus around on automation. It will focus on EQ, compression, and things that are tangible and that you've covered over and over again. So there's no real hidden things here. It's all kind of testing you on how well you know your stuff from components 1 and components 2. Now that's it for today. So in the next session, we'll look at question 3. If you like this content and want to see more, give us a like, give us a thumbs up, and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you tomorrow.